21 days. That's the window that just opened for one of the most crucial decisions the Detroit Lions will face this season, and it has absolutely nothing to do with our playoff push. While everyone's focused on our win-or-go-home stretch against division rivals, there's a ticking clock in the background that could define our offensive line strategy for years to come. Welcome back to Lions News Fan Report, your exclusive source for the latest breaking updates, in-depth analysis, and insider perspectives on our beloved Detroit Lions. I'm bringing you a story today that connects our immediate playoff desperation with a long-term roster decision that's unfolding right now at practice. By the end of this breakdown, you'll understand why the next 3 weeks might determine not just our postseason fate, but also whether a significant investment from our 2024 draft class has a future in Honolulu Blue. Let me set the stage for where we are as a franchise right now. We're in Week 16 with our backs against the wall. The playoff picture is brutal. We need to win out, and even that might not be enough without some help from teams playing the Bears or Packers. This is survival mode. This is Dan Campbell at his most intense, pushing every button, demanding maximum effort from every player who steps on that field. There's no room for experimentation. There's no time for long-term projects. Every snap counts, every play matters, every decision needs to be about winning the game in front of us. That's the reality of where this team is right now. But here's where things get complicated in ways most fans aren't seeing yet. This week, the Lions designated a player to return from injured reserve, opening up a 21-day practice window. That player is Giovanni Manu, our fourth-round pick from the 2024 draft, an offensive tackle from the University of British Columbia, who was always going to be a developmental project. Now, normally, getting a young offensive lineman back from injury would be cause for optimism, especially with how physical our games have been and how much depth matters. But the comments that came out of Dan Campbell's mouth on Wednesday told a completely different story than what you'd expect. I've been covering this team closely, analyzing every press conference, every injury report, every roster move. And I can tell you that Campbell's tone when discussing Manu was unlike anything I've heard from him about a young player. There was no talk about him potentially helping us down the stretch. There was no excitement about adding depth for the playoff push. Instead, what I heard was something that should make every Lions fan sit up and pay attention to what's really happening here. Campbell essentially said that Manu needs reps desperately, that he needs practice time against Marcus Davenport and Aiden Hutchinson, that if they're able to use him this year, it would be a bonus, but that it's really about setting him up for next year's training camp. Let that sink in for a moment. We're in a playoff race where every game is must-win, and Campbell is talking about a recently activated player in terms of next year's training camp. That's not the language you use for someone you're counting on. That's not how you describe a player who's part of your plans for this season. That's the language of a coach who's being brutally honest about a situation that isn't trending in a positive direction. Here's the full context you need to understand. Manu spent his entire rookie season in 2023 as a healthy scratch. Not a single snap. That's not uncommon for developmental offensive linemen, especially ones coming from smaller programs. The Lions knew what they were getting when they drafted him out of British Columbia. This was always going to take time. But then this season, year 2, was supposed to be different. He was supposed to start getting real opportunities to show what he could do. He appeared in 4 games total and made exactly one start back in Week 5 when Taylor Decker went down with an injury and we faced Cincinnati. That start against the Bengals was supposed to be Manu's audition, his chance to prove he belonged at this level, his opportunity to show the coaching staff they could trust him when needed. Instead, it became a harsh lesson in how far he still needs to come. The numbers from that game are concerning. Pro Football Focus graded him at 42.2 overall. He allowed 2 sacks in just 28 pass-blocking snaps. For context, that's a catastrophically bad performance for an NFL offensive tackle. You can't have your quarterback getting hit like that. You can't have protection breaking down that frequently. It simply doesn't work at this level. Now, were there some positive moments in that performance? Probably. Campbell alluded to some good things Manu showed. But here's the problem. He never got the chance to build on those positives because he got injured at practice a few weeks later. That injury has kept him out for 2 months. 2 months of development lost. 2 months of practice reps he desperately needed. 2 months of opportunities to improve and show growth. And now he's coming back in Week 16 of a season where the team has no margin for error and no time to develop young players who aren't ready to contribute immediately. The strategic implications of this situation are massive, and they extend well beyond this season. Taylor Decker, our veteran left tackle, who's been a cornerstone of our offensive line, recently revealed that he's considering retirement after this season. That puts the Lions in an incredibly difficult position. Left tackle is one of the 5 most important positions in football. You protect your quarterback's blind side. You need elite talent there. And if Decker retires, the Lions need to know whether Manu can be developed into that guy or whether they need to invest significant resources in free agency or the draft to find Decker's replacement. That's what makes these next 21 days so crucial. The Lions have to make a decision before those 3 weeks are up. Either activate Manu to the 53-man roster or place him back on injured reserve for the rest of the season. And based on Campbell's comments, based on the trajectory of Manu's development, based on where this team is right now in terms of playoff urgency, I'm seeing signs that point toward a concerning conclusion. Campbell essentially admitted that this practice window isn't about getting Manu ready to contribute now. It's about seeing if he can make enough progress to be worth keeping around for next year. That's evaluation mode, not integration mode. And when you're evaluating a player approaching the midway point of his rookie contract who hasn't shown he can perform at an NFL level yet, you're already in dangerous territory for that player's future with the organization. Let's talk about the broader roster construction issues this creates. The Lions have limited spots on the 53-man roster. Every player taking up a spot needs to justify that spot either through current contribution or clear future upside that's worth protecting. Manu isn't contributing now. Campbell made that clear. So the question becomes, is his future upside significant enough to warrant keeping him on the roster through a playoff push when that spot could go to someone who can actually help us win games right now? I'm looking at this situation and seeing some uncomfortable parallels to other developmental projects that didn't work out. The NFL is unforgiving. Players drafted in the 4th round need to show something by year 2, or teams start seriously considering whether they made the right evaluation. Manu has played 4 games across 2 seasons. He had 1 start, and it went poorly. He's been injured for extended periods. The reps he needs to develop aren't coming during a playoff race. Where does that leave him? Here's the speculation I need to address directly. Could the Lions be preparing to move on from Giovanni Manu? Could this practice window actually be a final evaluation before the organization decides he's not part of the future and makes him available for another team to claim? Based on everything I'm seeing, everything Campbell said, and the reality of where this roster is right now, I think that possibility is more real than most fans want to acknowledge. The Lions might give him these 3 weeks, see minimal progress, and make the tough decision that this developmental project isn't worth continuing. The alternative scenario would be keeping him, letting him practice, hoping he shows enough to justify a roster spot next year, and then spending significant draft capital or free agency money on a left tackle anyway, because you can't trust Manu to replace Decker. That's roster inefficiency. That's wasting resources. Championship organizations don't operate that way. They make hard decisions about players who aren't developing as hoped. I want to be clear that I'm not rooting for this outcome. I want every player we draft to succeed. I want Manu to somehow figure it out and become a quality NFL tackle. But I also have to be honest with you about what the signs are pointing toward And right now those signs aren't positive for his long-term future in Detroit. So here's my bottom line assessment. Giovanni Manu is facing a make-or-break 3 weeks that will likely determine whether he's part of this organization going forward. The Lions need immediate contributors, not long-term projects. They need to know what they have at tackle, with Decker potentially retiring. And if Manu can't show significant progress during this practice window, I wouldn't be surprised if the organization decides to move in a different direction, whether that's cutting him, trading him for late-round pick compensation, or simply letting another team claim him. That might sound harsh, but that's the business of professional football when development doesn't happen on the expected timeline. Now I want to hear from you, Lions faithful. Do you think Manu deserves more time to develop, or is it time for the organization to cut losses and find a more reliable solution at tackle? Should the Lions use their precious roster spots on developmental projects during a playoff push? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, because I genuinely want to know how the fan base is viewing this situation. Make sure you're subscribed to Lions News Fan Report and hit that notification bell so you never miss an update on this developing story and all the latest Lions news. We'll be tracking Manu's progress during this practice window and breaking down what it means for our roster construction. This is crunch time for this franchise. Every decision matters. Let's stay informed together. 1. Pride.